I guess I'll start with I guess with the obvious question, since the film revolves around Pinky and his story with Felipe Guerrero. How do you meet him? And you mentioned in your introduction that it was a documentary. So how much also the film is based on his own life?
Yes, actually, I met him in 2013 because he was my sister's boyfriend. Life is like that. Made of love. So, well, he was hanging around with my sister. He was all the time in my house with my family, and he and my sister they were making a lot of jobs or a lot of kind of things to earn money, and some of those was to how you say malabares in los zapatos.
Juggling in the lights in the streets.
In the street light, yeah. Mm-hmm. So actually, when I'm not living in Colombia. So when I went back to Colombia in 2015, and they were still doing the same. So they were unemployed, and I wanted to shoot a film over there. So I asked Pinky, he wanted to be my assistant, because I mean they're like very homemade films. I mean we're not I don't need professionals with me. So Pinky was there doing sound and some of things, and we were walking around Colombia, Medellín, and we were working in Medellín, like searching for the traces of the war. It was a film called Impressions of a War. And then you know, like two people, when you work together with someone else, you start opening yourself and telling what happened in your life. So he started to tell me that he was involved with Into the Sect and blah, blah, blah. But well, it was quite surprising. But what shocked me the most was that he was saying that he was very frustrated in life because he wanted to kill the leader of the sect, and that probably his life would been different if he could have done it. And after the years, he was becoming, well, a junkie and a beggar. And I really love him like a friend, and I was very sad seeing this person like being in the margins of society. So I talked to him once and I said, okay, are you still having this idea that your life failed because of this desire of revenge that did not happen? And he said, yes, probably that had been something else. So okay, let's kill that guy. I mean, no problem. That's for, I mean, we use cinema for these kind of things because you have a real desire to do it. And I have a real desire to help you to do it. So we're gonna make a film. In this film, you're gonna kill the guy. It's the first thing that you're gonna make. And then the problem is that we have to make a whole film about what happened then. Tell me what happened then. What's gonna become your life after that? Because if you think that your lives could have been better, so you have to describe a better life. But for him, and even I, we were both unable to describe a better life for Pinky at that moment.
So based on this premise, how do you start building the film? In terms of writing the screenplay, how much you envision before production and going to production, but also the visual aspect of it. It seems like it's integral to creating this whole universe. Is integral to the film. So I'm interested in learning how you build these two elements.
Well, there's not much of a script for this film. It was like an experience. I mean, and you you cannot write what is going to be the result of an experience. You have just to experience it. So, well, we were just talking by email and phone calls, and I was asking him questions, and he was, how you say, he started in his head to reenact what happened, and composing with memories, and also composing. I'm using this word composing because you're not only recall what happened, you also want to compose a better picture of what happened, or the picture that suits you the best. So I was also into this narrative problem of how he wanted to tell me what happened. And I think that was the very beginning of a situation in which he had to face his own frustration and face his own possibilities of becoming another person. And the visual aspects of the film, because we had much of that to say. We didn't want to, I mean, he's someone who was all the time going out from reality, smoking crack and having visions of another kind of reality. And I think that is probably the most beautiful point of view from which we can observe reality to an alterated state, another outside the state, and mostly for so delirious reality as Colombians. So my background is from fine arts, so I'm also a person from visions, I think.
When I get back to the Colombian aspect, but Felipe, I want to ask you, when did you start when this creative collaboration started, and particularly with Los Conductos?
Yes, thanks for coming and for staying here for this Q&A. Yes, I met Camilo because I distribute his short film, the one that he told about the meeting with Pinky. That's the impression of a war, because we work also as a distribution company in Colombia of these kind of films that are bizarre and strange stuff. So I was so interested in this short film, and after that we became friends and we talked a lot, and he told me that he wants to make this film. And because of this, as Camilo said, that there was no attempt to script the film, just to experience with Pinky. So we had a lot of problems with that for finance the film, but because it was like a very strong project, but we need to when you need to finance the film, you need more like a blood or something more normal. So this was like the first difficult to affront the project, but after we decided to shoot the film, so we got some funds to finish the film, and fortunately we done it.
I was saying that, you work in so many films as an editor, and in this case, you edited the whole film yourself, which is pretty also amazing. Was there any kind of feedback in terms of the editing?
Yes. It was a very interesting process because, of course, I see the work, the film work, and the film producing, and my approach to filmmaking is from the editing process. So, of course, I have a lot of intuition comments about the work of Camilo at the end of the film. But the first and I think the best advice that I gave to him is like, you have to do it alone. You have to go forward with your delirious and with your ideas, and I think I will help you only keeping you strong to finish your film.
Going back to the Colombian question. So we start with Pinky and his voiceover, and you end up the film with this poem by Gonzalo Arango, Elegy for Revenge, I think is the equivalent. So since you're pushing us, and also knowing your short films, you're commenting on Colombia's troubled history, but with violence. So I'm interested in that, kind of from the personal, how you trying to make a larger point in terms of, for Pinky, how you're making a point of Colombia's.
Yes, I always answer the question the same way, but probably I don't have another way of answering. But this is a portrait film, and I built a frame for the portrait. Pinky made his own portrait. He put himself into it, and I needed to frame it into the right way. And this right way for me was not only focalizing myself in himself, but in what he represented. And he represented a part of Colombians that are put into trash bin. He is what we don't want to see. And so when you are making a portrait of someone that no one wants to see, then you have to build a new kind of a frame. And this new kind of a frame is not telling the story, it's telling several stories. And when you have all these stories like revenge and the clowns and the devil, there's a single thing that linked them all together is the idea of someone who is in the margins of society, questioning society from a point of view. And from this point of view, this person doesn't know what's the difference between justice and injustice and lies. And this, I think, is lies and truth. And this, I think, is the most wonderful point of view to question our society and our governments. So I wanted to end the film with, I, Pinky, my portrait, you want to see me because you put me into the margins. Then I see you from another place. And then the main idea of that one, if you put me there, if you put me without any future, then probably I'm going to be back like revenge, and then blood is going to be everywhere. So I think it's not an idea. It's not such an idea of political, of the idea of denunciation, denunciation. Yeah. I mean, it's not a film about explaining or about like militancy. It's a film about rage. It's a film about being angry. And I think that is is instant, but the best way of moving forward. And I only think that I like films that are with rage, and that it is a fast film. It's only 7 minutes. It is like, no way, we're not going to accept to be quiet in a place that you design for us.
One more question before we open for questions and comments from the audience. I'm really intrigued, and I think that's a really powerful part of the film. And traditionally, Colombian cinema, and when you talk about these types of issues, people in the margins, violent, rage, it's kind of the tropes of realist cinema. Mm-hmm. And you avoided all of that precisely to create a more sensorial space, and you call it a portrait. I would probably say a performatic portrait. Also, you bent all the rules in terms of depiction of this reality. I'm really curious to hear your perspective on that.
Yes, because it's very linked to the idea of representation. I mean, you're represented by your government, but you are also represented by people who wants to create an image of what you are. And I think that a lot of filmmakers, they are just putting people into categories, making stigmatas of what they are supposed to be. And that happens a lot about Colombians. I mean, and that makes an emogenic, only way of telling the story. So you have to break out, you have to dissolve the story. And that was happened, that it's what happens in this film. There's not going to be one story. There's not going to be one way of telling things. There's going to be a lot of ways of telling things. So if you want to represent me, you know, what happened to the main character? You think that you are representing someone into a category, and that people is going to be steady, the same one. But you know, the main character is always changing. And at the end, he's changing to another person. It is not the person that we expected to be. So it's all, don't lock me into categories, and don't do that, not even making films. And I think that films are becoming jails in a certain way.
So we open the floor for any questions from the audience. We have a mic up there.
Thanks. I have a question about how you find your compositions. Is that something you conceive of ahead of time and go seek the ingredients for, or is that something you find on locations?
Well, my background is from painting, so I have like a sense of visual composition, and but all of that is like into an improvisation process mostly. Yes, we did not have time for make a scouting for the film. We shoot the film, and at the same time we were discovering where we were shooting. But I think that I'm very confident on the way I can move into images because of this background in painting. But I wanted to add something else and just escape from my mind. Well, maybe it's coming later. You know, by instance, there's this sequence about the printing factory where you have this fire flames in printing factory. And then I really like to think a lot about this sequence. I don't know how I had this idea, but it's the idea of producing something and showing how you can produce something. And if you can imagine that this is a kind of a metaphor of the film itself, it's the way of we are not only making the film, but we are revealing how we make the film. And I think that this is the idea of the process and not the idea of the product. And I think that, well, Felipe was talking about financial files. They want products. They don't want to produce. They want a product already into the packaging. And no, what I wanted to say is that something that someone said something about the film that I think is one of the most wonderful compliments is that it is a poor film. What a richness into all that poorness. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's the way in just garbage can be so beautiful to watch. And when you have all this mountain of garbage, what is garbage actually? Is what we don't want to see. I mean, it's past. Garbage is useless. And how beautiful it is.
There's a lot of duality in the film in different instances. I mean, we will say pinky, two-folder. You were saying also about the pictures, the original, the fake ones. And so in terms of creating this portrait, I'm intrigued that connection with kind of a dual portrait of your character.
Well, that was an evidence because the thing in the religious sect there was a leader. I mean, it was like the ideal, and then the disciples were like the fake. I mean, they were like the model. They were the fake of the. I don't know the negative of it. I don't know how to say it. I mean, the reproduction of the ideal. And so there was all of this duality already from there. You have the father, then you have the son, you have the disciple. And then I wanted to just play around these ideas. And you have reality, you have documentary, and you have fiction. You have reality and you have hallucination. And so I just wanted to jump from one to another and not even think about how I'm going to jump from another, just jump. And it was just, I know that I can jump between two spaces and that I don't know how I'm going to jump in between those spaces or why I'm going to do it. But art is also a place to play, as easy as that. I mean, you can play with that. And there's a lot of reproduction into the film, and the idea of reproducing is also the idea of that probably there's not one original image. There are all reproductions and reproductions and reproductions. And what we call reality, or what we call Colombian reality, is only a story that has been told.
Sure, sorry. Yeah, that's amazing.
Thank you for this really impressive film, and I was very struck by what you said at the beginning, that you wanted Pinky to imagine a different life for himself, and that while in the process of making the film, you couldn't imagine a different life in that moment, or he couldn't imagine a different life in that moment. Actually, I thought about film as a process of therapy or healing. And I wonder just what happened next. What did the film do to, your friendship with Pinky? What did it do to him, that process? Thank you.
No, many thanks. Yes, I mean, we wanted to make this experience, but we were playing about this idea of, okay, you can imagine a new future. No, well, it was so difficult to imagine it. I only put one condition to Pinky to make the film. It was just stopping consuming crack 3 months before of the shooting of the film. But at that moment, he was homeless. He was completely savage. So I just said, okay, I'm gonna shoot a film. It was all my economies, all our economies. We were shooting all our economies, working with someone who was homeless and who was smoking crack all the time. But it was a kind of a trust. I trusted him, we trusted him, and then I wanted just him to prove me that I can trust in him. And he stopped smoking crack just because, he really wanted to make the film. And now he's a completely different person. So a different person that he now, he go back to his family who lives in another town. So mostly part of his problem was because family problems, going from a small city to the big city, and then being lost and trying to find love that he missed from the family. Oh, he went back. He find a job in a skate shop. He's now skating and using Instagram, which is his new drug, we were talking about. But I don't know if that's better than crack, but he's using it.
And Felipe, so the world premiere of the film happened February 2020. A pandemic happened, and then it got released last year in Colombia, in theaters, and it coincided. There was social unrest in Colombia, kind of a political meltdown. Can you tell us, in this new context where the film was
Yes, it was interesting for us because the film was premiered in June last year in Colombia, and was the first opening of the theaters after the pandemic. And it was at the same moment when it was like angry society that protests against the government, and this was like 2 weeks, two bloody weeks in Colombia, and we were, like come to see the film. It was very difficult for us, but at the same time, it was wonderful for the film because the film has this spirit, this hungry, and this guy that represent, the youth of people that doesn't they want to change the world. So it was like good for the film and for us that the people see in the film this spirit of revenge and this spirit of go against the government. So it was like good for the film and good for us also to feel this sensation.
Okay. We were talking about dualities, and I was thinking also you made, you're a very achieved filmmaker. You made 5 wonderful short films, and this is your debut feature. So I think there's also a duality between making short films and becoming a filmmaker where you first make your first feature film. How have you lived that duality also, your previous work versus your first feature film, and also have you noticed any difference in terms of the structures or?
No, not at all. No. Because I told you that I come from painting. I'm just using a larger canvas. I mean, it's so normal. I mean, I needed more space. That's all. But it happened that happens that this larger canvas conveys more audience and has another engagement with. With a commercial system, which I would love to be here. I mean, I'm not against it, but I'm just saying that short films there are so difficult to move and to be watched and to convey audience. And feature films, it's natural for people to go and watch a feature film, but even although it's not a classical feature film, because a classical, normative feature film is a 90 minutes film, and this is only a short feature film of 70. But that was the material that we had. We had a material for 70 minutes. And if I had a material for 3 hours, probably I would have done. It's just a canvas problem.
Have you started working on a new project in this? It's been 2 years since you prepared the film, so.
Yeah, a lot. I mean, I wrote a script. And we have been trying to produce this film, but I really, it is my first script. I really tried. And it's a good one. It has a story. The story is all, of course, very complicated. It's very visual. And we need to find money for that. So it's not easy. And so in the pandemics, I thought that it was probably a bad idea to grow that script and to have this idea of making a huge film. So I decided to make a series of films, of really short films, about 5 minutes. And it is probably a more affordable project. It's gonna be called The Room of Shadows. And it is a very pedagogical series. It is about how some art works, films, but also paintings, have questioned our society It is anti-conformism. It's how artists don't want to represent society as it is and want to offer another point of view of society. So it's going to be a series of 24 chapters of that, which is something like an essay, but also fictional. I don't know, it's like, how you say, un desafío.
A challenge.
It's a challenge because I don't know how to make a film about an essay.
Coming from the visual arts and painter, what's the part that you enjoy the most of filmmaking?
Shooting the film. Yeah, shooting the film is the most. I mean, at that moment, when you're in front of the materials. I mean, you're like a sculptor, and you're touching persons, and you're moving cameras, and you're using lights, and that's the moment when you are really a sculpting. It was Tarkovsky who said sculpting time. But yes, you're sculpting time, and you're making things with materials, and I think that that is what a filmmaker has to do. It's not the problem of writing scripts. It's not the problem of finding money. It's not the problem. A filmmaker has to make that fucking sculptor at that moment.
Great. Time for last question.
Sorry.
The film is going to be playing through this Thursday. So, and Camilo's going to be here tomorrow and Sunday as well. So, please help us put the word out. And thank you for coming. Thank you, Felipe. Thank you, Camilo. Thank you for being here.
Thanks to you, many thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.